Hi, welcome everyone. It's Mary Kennedy here from the Celtic Wheel. Delighted to be here to bring you the wisdom of cycles. This is when I get together with my great friend, Charlotte Donache, who is a wonderful astrologer. And we bring together the wisdom of the Celtic Wheel and our Celtic ancestors and the astrology. So welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Lovely. Can you let us know when the autumn equinox is? Because that's what we're going to be talking about, the energies of the autumn equinox and what's happening in the sky.
Yes, so astrologically it's on the 22nd of September. Exact time is 8:21 p.m. And yeah, shortly I will be telling you what's happening in the sky and with the planets on that date.
Yeah, and it's really important, I think, to bring this together because I know the Celts, certainly it was really the pre-Celts that were the stargazers. They, built these great monuments and we see how they were aligned to the sky and what was happening in the sky, the sun, the moon. But it's also lovely then to get the sense of, well, what's the folk traditions as well as, what was passed down through the layers of our ancestors and what really is important for us to reweave back into our modern world that has been lost. That's really why we do this together. So let me start maybe with, the Celtic wheel, what the autumn equinox, the energies, what are the gifts, the challenges of this time. We are in the final cycle or the final festival of the wheel with the autumn equinox. Of course, we're talking about the Northern Hemisphere here. And this is about completions, we're at the completion of the cycle. The next time that we have a festival, which is around October 31st, it's going to be Samhain, which is the new year. So we're in the very last part of the cycle with the autumn equinox. And of course, equinox means equal night, equal day. So we will at that equinox have that time where there is that balance, that very midpoint of light and dark. And as we move towards Samhain, the darkness increases in the Northern Hemisphere. And the light, our long days start to, well, they've been getting shorter actually since the summer solstice, but we're going to really see the difference now. We're in mid-autumn. The autumn equinox is mid-autumn. We started autumn, the doorway into autumn was Lunasa at the beginning of August. So now we're seeing really how autumn is here. We've had beautiful sunny Indian summer here in Ireland, but the leaves are beginning to turn. So from now until Samhain, we're really going to see how the earth will show us this magnificent cloak of many, the deep browns and reds. So it's bringing that last kind of blast towards completion before she lets go of the leaves and lets go of the life force begins to draw in. So the energy of completion is one to really work with. It's like I often think, how do I do completions in my life? Are you in a place of completion right now? And if you are, the Celts taught us, or our ancestors and the folk tradition taught us, that it is a time that really is to be honored, to slow down, to look back, to complete. So often in our world, we just kind of fly through, go from next task to the next, and we don't really harvest the learnings or decide very consciously what we want to bring and what we want to leave behind from a cycle that has passed. So that's one of the big pieces. And again, something I think that's really rich for this time of our increasing consciousness around how to live more wisely. The other piece that's, of course, it's the last harvest. We started the harvest with the first fruits at Lunasa, and now at the autumn equinox, we are into the final harvest. So this really shows us the connection, because they celebrate and honor in the rituals and in the traditions handed down to us. They celebrate the great generosity of land goddess, of the earth. The tribe, have been in deep relationship with the earth since Imbolc, which is the opposite festival on the wheel. And now they are reaping the harvest and honoring in great celebration and gratitude the earth. And this again is something, you know, in the climate crisis that we need to really bring back in, this awareness of how we are so connected with that land goddess, with the earth. And then I suppose the third thing I want to bring in here is that the autumn equinox energies show us is how the cyclical nature of our existence. And again, I suppose it echoes back that interconnected, but so often we think of our lives are in straight lines. You know, I certainly lived my life in a straight line. This happens, then this, then this, then this, but actually that there's always maybe something dying and completing, and there's always something being born, or knowing that there's a time to renew and there's a time to be out in the world. And at the autumn equinox, we're moving back in towards a more interior, the more the dark goddess phase. And, you know, there's a beautiful ritual of cutting the last sheaf of grain. And the person who cut that last sheaf was offered gifts from the other world. So it was very special to do that. And that sheaf was then kept and held and stored. Sometimes it was woven into a doll or a figure, and it was stored in the barn or in the shed or in the kitchen. And it was felt that there was a potency in that last sheaf, a potency of wisdom that actually that would be passed on to the new seeds at springtime. So again, that sense of the cyclical nature of our existence and how everything is connected, and that lovely sense also of just as we come into the older part of the season, that has a connection back into what's new in springtime. So those are just a couple of ways I work with the energies of the autumn equinox. So from the Celtic tradition. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Charlotte, and see, are there any synergies with what's happening astrologically, or, you know, have you more to add? Tell us how we can work from that perspective at this time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the synergy that stands out to me the most actually is Venus, which is a planet of love, relationships, beauty, values, and one that we all kind of like is going into the sign of Scorpio, which is her least favorite position. All the planets have their favored areas and their less favored areas, and Scorpio for Venus is quite difficult because she's very much about sharing and beauty, and Scorpio is about the underworld. So Venus is going to the underworld, and it sort of has the essence of Persephone. If you know the myth of Persephone, in astrology, she's the daughter of Ceres, which is the goddess of the harvest.
Mm.
So, you know, the myth of Ceres is that her daughter was captured or taken by Hades, the god of the underworld, and taken down to be his wife. And Ceres was so devastated by the loss of her daughter that she stopped the harvest for 6 months. Until the gods intervened and then said, okay, this isn't really working because no one can eat. So came along and they agreed that Persephone would spend 6 months up, 6 months down to satisfy both Hades and Ceres. Although part of the myth is also that she was supposed to be released, and then Hades gave her some pomegranate seeds, and if she ate anything from the underworld, she wasn't allowed to fully leave. So that's the other side of it, which is a little bit darker, and the one I prefer. But yeah, so essentially, of course, there's this Persephone element to what's happening in our relationships. It's actually a very strong relationship time in general, this equinox. And that could be the relationship to self and the relationship, obviously, to other, that, you know, the two things go hand in hand. And with the equinox coming in and it being a time of harvest and a time when we sort of, let's say, are slowing down, with Venus kind of going into the underworld, this is a lot of self-reflection and a lot of probably self-honesty about how we're dealing with things at the moment, what's actually going on for us. And then Mars, the masculine planet, is in Libra, which is the sign of relationship and harmony. So actually the masculine's going into a place where it's more, you know, looking for a more harmonious outcome, whilst Venus goes into the underworld. And of course, we're about to go into the dark feminine. So it very appropriate for what's happening with the cycles. I think what's also worth mentioning is Venus is in an opposition with the planet Uranus, which is the awakener and the innovator and the sort of, at the moment, let's say the enlightening planet. But Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, which is the land, it's the earth. So what's happening is we're getting shock waves through the earth and the land, which is going to show up probably as more climate stuff over the next year. And so as Venus and our relationship to self and other goes into the underworld, we've also got the land kind of speaking up and getting louder and saying, look, this is what I need and this is what I want. And if you don't comply, then see ya. So, you know, there's in other years, we might look at this time as being a little bit more relaxed because of where we are and because of the cyclical nature of events and times. We're in a time, we're in a cycle where things are very challenging, let's say. The energies are very challenging. I don't want to confuse everyone, so I won't go into too much of the other astrology, but there are other aspects on this day that also speak to discord and disruption. So where we're going to see this on a personal level, as I say, is going to be in the relationship sphere. So really, I would see this as a time of harvesting your relationships and your relationship to yourself and other people, because that's where the seeds need to be planted. That's where new seeds need to grow. And how we interact with each other at the moment is really the main topic of why there's so much discord in the world, because there's a lot of separation, a lot of divide, and we are literally seeding a new reality at the moment. So just to say that there's a new moon in Libra on the 6th of October, so just a couple of weeks after, and this also is going to ramp up the relationship with conflict and harmony. So going into October is going to be quite a frenetic month, I think. So taking time to personally reflect, reevaluate, and just be very conscious of how you're relating. And
I think, you know, I'll jump in here. Just what's
Yes.
coming to me is, you know, I know we're opening up here, you know, in Ireland. I don't know what's happening elsewhere, but as we open up, there is a completion of, you know, the last 20 months or so. So that's a completion that, again, as you say, we could just reflect on. We
Yes.
could actually reflect on, look at how has it affected our relationships? How have we changed? How have our relationships changed? It's that pausing to just be in the beat of completion, of just stepping out of, I'm just rushing out to, okay, the whole thing's opening up again. We're going back to normal. We're never going back to normal. Everything has changed. So I'm really aware as I go out in the streets that there's a really feeling like I'm aware of, like, the traffic's crazy again. It's like, oh my God, have we all just forgotten that there's this pausing was for something, and reminding us our connection with nature. And so that's maybe one way to look at it. When you say, Charlotte, harvesting our relationships, can you just speak a bit more about what that might look like? How would we harvest them?
Yeah, so I think talking about patterns and cycles particularly, the patterns, because everything's like a smaller version of everything else. It's like the Russian doll scenario. Everything that we're experiencing in our own individual lives is a reflection of what's happening in the bigger picture. So when we're interacting in relationship, what we're doing is our own micro version of work that really is happening it is happening on the wider scale. It's harder to see, but it is happening. And so what we're noticing is that as we leave this old system and old society behind, the patterns and habits of how we've been relating are no longer appropriate. So it's being able to pause, I think, and recognize what doesn't work anymore. And a lot of what doesn't work is stuff that we'll be very happy to get rid of, you know, because of necessity, we've had certain relationship dynamics in our lives that have been somewhat secretive, actually, and maybe a little bit, almost a little bit deceitful to ourselves and others, because we felt like that's how we've had to be. And as Venus goes into the underworld, what we're going to be doing is going, so these little sort of relationship tactics we've built, because that's what's been demonstrated to us by society, it doesn't work anymore. We need truth, honesty, and integrity. Yeah. And that's you know, as we go into Libra and then Virgo, you know, these are the kind of topics we're really talking about.
Yeah, or Scorpio, and Scorpio.
And Venus going into Scorpio. I mean, that's more about the shadow coming up. So that's
right.
like, if you don't have truth, honesty, and integrity, what happens?
Yeah. And it is. I mean, these are times that are really illuminating our shadow. It's just to have the bravery to actually work with them, because it's where our freedom lies, right? Ultimately. Okay, so that's really what, you know, I suppose to sum it up, we're looking at what's your relationship, how are your relationships, that's maybe what needs attending right now, and then to the relationship to the earth, because she's speaking to us, and nature speaking to us through, you know, the pandemic that we're currently going through, and the climate. So to just really attune to that, a lot of this is about slowing down, and the slowing down that's happening in the cycle anyway, as we move inwards and back towards the dark. So the slowing down, the completion, your relationships, harvesting what maybe you've learned through since Samhain of last year, which is last October, or even in the bigger cycle of since we went into the first lockdown. Those are some ways of working with it, you know. Always lovely to light a candle and elevate the space, and really when you are doing that harvesting, that you just create a ritual around it. And rituals really are, you know, about just stepping into an other outside the normal, stepping in, and really we find nourishment when we go to the other world, which is healing nourishment available to us. So is there anything else you want to add, Charlotte, before we bring this to a close?
I don't think so, no. I mean, I just wanted to pick up on the fact that, of course, the relationship to nature is a relationship as well, you know, and the relationship to each other is a relationship with nature, but yeah, also to the earth. So I'm glad that you brought that in, because I forgot. But you know, it's our relationship to everything is our relationship to nature.
Yeah. And it's, to get out and be in nature at this glorious time of certainly here on the Celtic lands, there's, you know, the autumn is so beautiful, or the fall, but get out, but, you know, engage in nature. That's how we engage. We really bring attention to our relationships. So, well, we will see you back here for Samhain, which will be in 6 weeks' time or so. And anyone who is interested, I'll just give you a heads up that I am starting my Celtic Wheel program for women, which is a year-long program, which the registration is going to open on the 2nd of October. And it is a beautiful program where I bring women together and we travel through the ritual year, and we come together for ritual and for deep learning. And I call it like the heroine's journey, for a whole year, where you can be in relationship and in community with yourself and with nature, and with the great Celtic wisdom that is really rising right now on the planet, I feel. So I will leave some details of that below, but you can have a look on the CelticWheel.com and you'll see all the details there. Thanks, Charlotte, and I will see you at Samhain. Looking forward to the new year and the Celtic tradition.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks everyone, and see you soon.
See you soon.